Hello, I'm Bret and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Our guest today is Reverend Keith Russell Lee. Reverend Lee is the accomplished pastor of Destiny Church, which is located in the suburbs of Chicago. Keith is also an entrepreneur. His book, Power, Faith, and Living, offers a guide for creating an extraordinary life. He's currently working on a PhD from Trinity Theological Seminary in Indiana. Keith is married, and he's the proud father of 3 children. Keith Russell Lee, welcome to The Defining Moment. It's such a pleasure for me to welcome you here to our show today.
Thank you, Bret. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. Our topic today is achieving oneness with God. And I'd like to begin by asking you to share with our viewers your defining moment which led you to deepening your understanding of God.
In my book, I use it as a story that opens the book. And I talk about this man who had everything. And he had the beautiful family, he had the wonderful kids, he had all of the wonderful financial toys that money could buy. But something was lacking and missing. And there on the beach in Jamaica, the story goes, as it was actually my life, I looked up into the sky and I saw, really almost for the first time, it looked like looking at the sky for the first time, seeing all of the stars and the moon, and I started reflecting upon all that was there. I think the psalm says, O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is thy name. And, when I consider the moon and the stars which you have made, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou considereth him? And really it was like a moment for me that I was like, wow, this is just really incredible. I mean, it's like I felt connected to God, and I felt connected to this wonderful, great universe in a way unlike I ever had before. And that became really my whole defining moment about 5 years ago that has really driven me to really understand God even at a deeper level, where at that point in my life, I had been in church all of my life. I've been actually pastoring for 15 years. So this was truly a defining moment in my life and ministry.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing that. Appreciate that. What is divine consciousness?
Well, divine consciousness is really what I call God consciousness, is really an awareness of God. It is when we come to the point of really understanding our oneness that we have with God and all that He made. It's a heightened awareness. A lot of times from an intellectual perspective, we simply say, I know God, or yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I'm, whatever my faith tradition may say that I am. But from the standpoint of really coming to a point of a heightened awareness when you are able to see God in not just the things of God, in terms of the ecclesiastical things, but in every aspect of life. It's a heightened awareness of God, and it's a mindset, and it's a consciousness.
How can human beings go about deepening their awareness of divine consciousness?
Well, I think it's, to ask the question in that context, it's, that's about kind of, doing. How can I do that? It's not really a formula. I really believe that it comes as a result of just simply being. It's a thing of actually surrendering to God, and surrendering to understanding that God is bigger and greater than that which we have created him to be. I think one of the problems, Bret, is that we have, kind of put God in this proverbial box. This is God. He shows up at Sunday morning at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock service. And God stays within these, nice little parameters as far as our life is concerned. When in fact, God is greater than that. But yet for me to be able to, really understand that, I've got to be able to at least let go of that idea that I have of God and say, God, you reveal yourself to me. You manifest yourself to me. That's what I believe that in my experience, like in Jamaica, okay, looking up, wow, for the first time, this awesome wonder of all this great universe. And man, I am significant. God made me in His likeness and in His image. Man, I'm fearfully and I'm wonderfully made. And the same God who did all of that, it was a moment of surrender for me that then brought my level of consciousness to the standpoint of me understanding my oneness with God and all of life that He created.
Okay, very good.
But it's not a thing, again, I just want to emphasize, but it's not about doing, because I think that we get caught up into this thing of doing. I've got to do it. Well, what's the book? I got to get the book. I've got to get this. I got to do this. And it's really just a thing of just being. And that being happens when I surrender to.
Okay, great. Thank you. In what ways is God our parent?
Well, that is very, I would say, obvious, from the standpoint of Jesus. Jesus, the great master and teacher, the Messiah, had shared that God is our Father. He demonstrated the relationship that humanity should have with God. Prior to Jesus, God was looked up as just simply a deity who is the great I am, as with it being revealed into Moses. Jesus came to give God, I believe, a much more of a not a human face, but a better way that we could be able to relate to Him. And so He brought God to the standpoint of, yes, He is creator, He is maker, but you know what? He is someone who intimately cares about His creation. He is someone who cares for us. And of course, that wonderful verse, John 3:16, brings that to mind. For God so loved the world, and it brings the Father as this loving figure to our lives. And so God as our Father, Jesus demonstrated that and led us to that understanding as God being one who is benevolent, one who is caring, one who is giving, and one who is concerned ultimately about His creation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. What's the best way we human beings can create a relationship of spiritual union with God?
I want to say that, again, it's that surrender part to God. Spiritual union is not something that we have to create. We're wired for it. It's already there. God so loved the world that He gave. And so we already, have that capacity, but it's an awakening. It's a point where we have to get to our lives where we open up to this understanding of who God is and say, God, wow, you are, beyond, again, my little box, but you are God who desires, as one of my professors says, a love relationship with us, and I think that just becomes as a point of an awareness.
Okay, but there is a process involved in order to evoke that and to allow that to happen, because people can live their whole lives with that never happening. Even they might try to surrender to something, but isn't there a process involved?
Well, yeah, in my book, The 14 Principles of Power, Faith, and Living, I talk about, first of all, just simply, number one, awareness. Because if awareness is so key and vital, because if I'm not aware, I'm ignorant too. That I have to be able to understand that there is, another level of consciousness, there's another level of being, that there is God, and God is seeking to manifest Himself to us on a higher level. So from that standpoint of awareness, that firstly, that I operate from. The second thing that I believe that we have to operate from is from the standpoint of simply embracing that. And when I say embrace that, because see, I can become aware of it in an intellectual perspective. Oh, yes, I must, embrace God. I must do this. And then we may say, well, that means I go to church and so forth and so on. But really, to embrace it means then that I really open up myself to the possibilities of all that God is. And let me share a story with you that happened with me in my whole process. What got me to this level in my understanding, which even before I wrote the 14 Principles of Power, Faith, and Living, I was having some personal struggles, and some things just was not working out for me. And I think everybody's been there, And really, I like to say my faith wasn't working for me. I was not getting the solace nor the answers that I needed. And again, here I am preaching the gospel, been in church all of my life, but still something was lacking. I had all of these personal issues that were rising up. And what happened for me was that then it led me, when I got to the point of this awareness, understanding the oneness with God, first of all, that was kind of radical for me. Because, what do you mean? I'm His child. I know all of the catechisms. I know all of the doctrines of the church. I'm His child. But still, something more was there. And so with me, what it led me to do, when I talk about embracing, I then went from the standpoint of saying, okay, God, you know what? I'm going to go blank slate, period. And you are going to have to reveal to me. And so I kind of look at it like as an onion. An onion is coreless. And so you begin peeling away each layer. And I began peeling away, almost every layer of almost everything that I had been taught to believe. First of all, those things were not working. And and initially it was very scary. But I do believe this. I believe that God is bigger than any type of questioning, and God is bigger than any type of examination that we could do. So he could withstand my little scrutiny of my inquiry about the things in regards to life as I was grappling with. But I began to peel away each layer of a lot of the beliefs and a lot of things that for so long I believed, and things that I looked at as just being simply, this was who I am. And it left me in a state or a stage of nothingness. I mean, you think about it, and as you peel away all the layers, bingo, whew.
There's nothing left.
But yet in that nothing left, the only thing that we are to do in that was simply to embrace. And that's what I'm saying. I then, not embracing a theology, not embracing, a doctrine, but God, now I'm going to embrace you. Whatever that looks like, whatever that is.
So it becomes, in a sense, an adventure. It becomes a process of discovery.
Yes.
And each moment is fresh in that sense, because each moment brings new opportunities, new challenges.
Yes. Now, I always tell people, I always warn them with this, Bret. I say, I share that when we're doing this kind of, spiritual work, because it's spiritual work, and I begin to realize that why they are spiritual masters and why they are few and far between. Because it takes a lot of work, and it gets scary, because everything that I think that I am, everything that I've been taught that I am, I'm then saying I'm no longer identifying with that. That which I thought God was or is then no longer. Everything that I've learned ever since I was a kid in the cradle roll Sunday school, everything that I taught was taught from college and seminary. You're telling me that, wow, there's another dimension and another level that is there. And that's kind of scary. And that's really not for the faint of heart. So it's really beyond
understanding or intellectual understanding
Yes.
of God. It's about having a vibrant, a real relationship with God.
Yes.
Where He's participating actively in your life.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's when we're able to really experience, truly, you begin to experience this oneness, and you experience this relationship that really becomes that defining moment within your life. And then it carries you to whole nother levels and dimensions.
Okay, great. Now, what's involved in going beyond believing in God and having faith in God to actually fully manifesting one's faith?
Moving from just having faith to being a manifestation of faith. Many people have faith, and we say, I've got faith in God. Matter of fact, 90% of Americans say that we believe in God. And that's really great and fine. But somewhere down the line, we have to get to the point of really manifesting God within our lives. Because see, I believe at best, once we come to the point of really embracing this oneness with God, then the next stage of that is then we manifesting Him. Jesus talked about that, where He says, if you see me, you see the Father. What was He saying? If you see me and the works that I do, all that I am doing is my Father's will. I am manifesting the Father. So I've got to move in consciousness and make a concerted effort now to be about my Father's business, and moving from just having faith in God, which is oftentimes lip service, or it gives me this nice, really warm, affectionate feeling that, I'm going to go to heaven. But yet from the standpoint of now, let's move to demonstrating in our lives, reflecting the light of God.
And once you do surrender yourself to that in a very real way, and through whatever process is necessary, then God begins to work with you moment by moment, doesn't He?
Definitely.
Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, and it is, because your life is open to God, you're walking in oneness with God, and you're hearing God. See, unfortunately, from my observation, we've gotten away from this concept of oneness with God in terms of American culture and society. Our Christianity becomes that which we put on Sunday mornings. We put on maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday night, whenever our midweek Bible studies are.
It's like we compartmentalize it into the compartment called religion.
Absolutely.
It's not something we live 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's something we do according to our schedule.
Right. And Jesus taught that it is a day-to-day, moment-by-moment relationship and connectedness with the Father. That was what his whole life was. That was everything that he demonstrated, was that simply it was a one-on-one connection. It was a moment-by-moment. It's a hearing. And everything that he did was he operated within the flow of God's Spirit. And that's the key. It's operating within that flow. When I understand oneness with God, I begin to then operate within the flow of God's Holy Spirit.
Okay, and you're saying that's available to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. How does God desire to participate in our families?
Oh, and, without a doubt, it's interesting. Before there was church, there was family. And I say that from the Genesis account. After God made all that he made, after all of the animals, after, everything was all set up in the Garden of Eden, God looked at man, Adam, and said, it's not good for man to be alone. So he made woman. And from the rib, as the scriptures share, he made them one. Now, it's interesting because family is the most important entity, the most important institution, in the world. And I say that because of the standpoint of the home is where basic instructions and teachings are given. And that's what I say. If a family, if a father and a mother understands, a husband and a wife understands truly their oneness with God, they understand the divinity that they have in Christ, and they understand the fullness of all that God has done for them and through them and wants to do in them and through them, man, imagine then what the family looks like. Imagine that many of the social ills that we have, because really, the sociologists share that, and the psychologist tells us that all the social ills that we have in this society all come down to the breakdowns of family. And so when we're talking about what, oneness with God would create, man, imagine families understanding that we are one with God and that God is seeking his purpose, his only purpose, is to manifest in us and through us that we may impact this world around us. And so I believe that many of those issues that we're dealing with, in terms of our society, would be eradicated. And that's not pie in the sky. And a lot of times when people say that, oh yeah, okay, great, some more, theological, philosophical gobbledygook, okay, yeah, we can save the world. No, let's look at it. If the family is the basic unit within society and civilization, if, and teaching and instruction should be nurtured and everything within that unit, which I say in American society, which I can speak definitively on, that we gave to the schools. Boy, they're really doing a good job, and I'm not talking about our education system, because they do the best they can with the resources they have, but they're not equipped to teach our children spiritually and morally. That belongs to the family. It's not even the church's responsibility. Oh, that's really controversial, because the church is only there to aid the family in the education within that home. So I believe that it's not some theological or philosophical gobbledygook, but in a very real sense that if we begin teaching oneness with God, power, faith, and living, and that connectedness that we have, and God seeking to manifest himself in us and through us, I believe that makes will make a tremendous difference in this world that we live.
Okay, very good. Thank you. How is God working in society today? What would he like to achieve working in cooperation with humanity?
Well, God is always at work. God is everywhere. And, even when we can't see God, I believe in the divine providence of God, the foreseen, as one writer called it, the foreseen and the foreknowing of God, the divine providence of God. And I believe that everything is in divine order and everything operates just as it's supposed to. And so even when those sometimes are hard, or we see, the perceived darkness overtaking the light, I believe that God is still in the midst. And I use the story of Joseph in the Old Testament, where Joseph, went through 17 years of hell and high water, and sold into slavery, became incarcerated, falsely accused, incarcerated, went through so many struggles to become the prime minister of Egypt. In each one of those instances that he went through, in all of those years of struggle and trial, God was still with him. At my church, we share that God is all there is, that there is no situation or circumstance or spot where God is not. And so I say that I believe God is always working. That's the short of it.
Okay.
Now, as relates to what God is really seeking to do is this. I believe that people have not been taught purpose. Purpose, God's original intention for their lives. I believe that there's so much talent and giftedness and ability within this world, but yet people have not been really taught their purpose of how to express that within the world at large. And really society, kinds of domesticates us, from the standpoint of, follow along with the herd, the way that we're socialized. And so we never are able to walk in our true greatness and walk in our true divinity in being who God made us to be, that God can be manifested. Because, the old preachers would say back centuries ago that God has no hands, he has no feet. But we are God's hands. We are God's feet. And I believe that God wants to teach purpose, wants us to be able to know purpose for our lives individually. That's what my book is all about. My book is solely designed to really move people to understanding what God's purpose is for their lives. That God has given them talent, gifted ability. They are preciously and wonderfully made by God. They are created, made in the likeness and image of God. He made them to be the head and not the tail, to be above only and not beneath. And he has something for us to do to impact the world.
Okay, so then global issues such as world peace, poverty, is God working on those?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I share the problem that we have about world poverty and all of those things is that we do too much analyzing and talking about it. Mm-hmm. And I share that probably the single most person that has impacted this world around world hunger issues, and she's now deceased, was Mother Teresa. Where, everybody else talks about it. Oh, isn't it a shame? Corporate America, oh this, oh that. Well, she says, let me do something about it. Let me go to the poorest place on the face of this planet, Calcutta, India. Mm-hmm. That's not on the beaten track, right. But she went there, and she decided to make a difference in the lives of people. And in making the difference of lives of the people of Calcutta, India, not for a photo op to go and to say, hi, look at what I'm doing, but because she genuinely cared and was moved to action. She caught the attention of popes, to prime ministers, to presidents, to corporate giants, to world leaders. I mean, you name it. It created a whole shockwave or a ripple effect on world hunger, and it likewise helps. If we spent more time instead of, complaining about, oh, isn't it so terrible? Oh, God is coming back again. Oh, it's this and that and the other, and so forth and so on, and actually was moved to action, first of all, find what our purpose is, because guess what? Our purpose has got to be something around hunger, or world peace. Then we can do something, and then definitely about world peace, and I love people who actively participate. Get out there and rally and protest. But I want to challenge people to take it another step further. See, Mahatma Gandhi had said that we must become the change that we seek in the world.
Yes.
And so, I may not agree with a president's policies, but you know what? If I'm promoting peace, I cannot vehemently attack his character. Because you know what? I'm sending shockwaves and vibrations within society of hatred, And so I've got to be able to, in every aspect of my life, this is just not some passive rhetoric. This is how spiritual laws in the universe work. I've got to also, be it in my family, in my home, how can I be talking about peace in the world and there's no peace in my home? Matter of fact, the Bible even talks about that. Those of us that want to be leaders, this is that first of all, we first must know how to lead in our homes, which is a hard mandate. I mean, for those of us that are married, and those of us that have been married, and those of us that have families, we know that's a hard mandate.
Yes.
But the key is that I must be the change in that. And in every area of my life, if I want to bring peace, I must align my life with peace. And it's as I align, I'm sending out vibrations within society that promotes peace. And so the reality of the fact is that, and again, I can't get to truly peace and solutions until I get to the source of life and the source of peace, which I believe who's the Prince of Peace and the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings, which is God through Jesus.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. If people want to know more about your ministry, how can they find out more?
My personal website is www.keithrlee.com, which has information about me, my speaking engagements, seminars, and many ministry systems that I have as far as that's concerned that can benefit you.
Okay, great. Well, Reverend Keith R. Lee, I want to thank you so much for having been our guest today in The Defining Moment. I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I want to thank you for the contribution you made today.
Thank you, Bret.
Thank you so much. You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.